Hello and welcome back to my XNA Mario tutorial series. In the last episode we created our ContentManager class, which handles loading all of our sprites and sounds, and we also created our ScreenManager class, which will handle all of our screens and switching between screens and things like that. And I created this temp screen to kind of show you how that works. We're going to end up getting rid of that. So in this episode I'm going to create the menu screen, because that'll be an easy way to test out our ScreenManager class without having to put a whole lot of work into the actual logic. So this is the screen that I'm going to be using. This is where I got the sprites. This is the menu screen. So this is what I'm going to be working with to duplicate. So the first thing that I'm going to do actually is just get this logo here and displayed, because that's really easy, and I want to start with something that you can actually visibly see. So the first thing that we need to do is create our menu screen. So I'm going to go here, and then we'll call this menu screen. And then in here, if we go back to my temp screen real quick, we can see this is how you extend a class in C#. Up here at the class, you have the main name of this class, and then colon, and then the class that it's extending from. So here we want to put this right here, and then let's go ahead and create our constructor. And remember, in a constructor you don't have a return type, so there's nothing here in between public and the constructor name. Sorry, I'm getting a message in Skype. Okay. So I have our constructor here, and then if we go back to my temp screen, you can see this is calling the constructor of this class that it's extending. But since in our screen class we don't have any parameters in the constructor, you just do that. So I'll come here and do base. Now we don't actually, let's see, we need our draw function here. So public override, and then it shows up. Let's go ahead and put the XNA, if I can type the XNA framework in here. So wait, we want that one, and then we also want graphics. And now I don't have to have all of this, because sprite batch is in the graphics context. So I don't need that, because what this is doing right here is it's calling this function, the base function, but that's not doing anything at all. So this does absolutely nothing right now. So the first thing we want to do, I will post a link in the description to all of these pictures. I just found these in different places on the internet. So it doesn't look perfect. It's actually a little bit different, but it's basically the same. So it'll be good enough for this. So we're going to take this, and it's just called menu on here, and drag and drop it here. Okay. Now we have to go back to our ContentManager class, and then right here we're going to call add texture menu, and then remember you don't include the extension, and then we'll actually call it I'll just leave it called menu. And if you remember the way I set this up, if you don't give a name, then it just uses the file name as the name. So then back here on our menu screen, we want to create a sprite for, well, actually not a sprite, it's a texture 2D. Later on we'll actually create a sprite class, but for doing animated sprites, but we don't need that yet. So we'll just use what am I trying to do? Yeah, this is a texture 2D, this menu thing when it gets loaded, so that's what we're going to call it. It's going to be texture 2D, and then we'll call it not menu logo. Okay, menu logo. And then in the constructor here, we want to say menu logo equals, and then we need to use this project managers, because our content manager is in here. So now we do content manager dot get instance dot load textures. No, not load textures. That's what you call it at the beginning. Dot textures menu. Okay, so now we have that, and now here we want to do sprite batch dot draw, and then we have our texture 2D, and then I want to give it a vector, and for now let's just put it at the origin, just so we can make sure that that works correctly. Okay, so let's go back to our ScreenManager class. Let's just get rid of our temp screen from here. So when we have other screens, we'll just call this multiple times for every screen, and then we can switch between them by changing current screen. Okay, so we have that. If this works correctly, we will have the little menu logo on the window, or that. Okay, so there was a problem with this. I'm not sure why. Maybe that doesn't work. Let's just change it back to there for now. See if that works. The given key was unhandled. Well, we're off to a great start here. Why is that not working? Okay, I'm going to pause it for a sec and then come back to this when I figure it out. Okay, so it turns out the problem is my ScreenManager is getting instantiated in the constructor of the whole game, while my content isn't actually getting loaded until the load content method gets called. So all we have to do to fix this is take that and then not call that until after all the content is loaded. And I changed this back. Oh, well, that was the same before. I went ahead and got rid of that, so it should work now. And there we have the wow, I don't really know why that's centered there. I guess, oh, because I did that. Okay, sorry, I did that on accident. While I forgot to do that, I meant to do that on video. So this isn't actually centered. It looks like it is, but let's see. If we look at the size of this, the size of this is 400, and the size of our screen is about 800. So that almost gives you an exact center, but it should actually be a little bit off. I think it's a little bit to the right. Okay, so what we need to do to actually make that centered, and this will be more obvious with something that isn't so perfectly sized, we need to get the size of the screen. Now, since probably every screen is going to need to know the size, I'm going to actually put it here. So we'll have a actually, I need to first find out what type of file that is, or what type of class this is. So the way you get the size of the screen is you do graphics device.viewport.bounds. Let's see. Bounds is just a rectangle. So we want to pass to our ScreenManager just a rectangle, and then we'll do screen size. Now the next thing we want to do, inside our screen, we're going to actually use this now, we'll have rectangle, screen size, and then we're going to ask for the screen size here. Screen size equals okay. Now the next thing we have to do in our menu screen, it's getting angry at me because I don't have I'm not giving it a screen size, a rectangle, so we'll also have to ask for it here, and then pass that through to here. Now I don't really need this, but I'm going to keep it just for now if I ever have to test something, so I'll go ahead and fix this one too. Okay, so now the ScreenManager is passing, we have to pass this through there. Now the ScreenManager will pass through the screen size to every screen that's added. Now the last thing we have to do is actually give this the bounds. So we want to do graphics device.viewport.bounds. And now we have access to the screen size inside our screens. I might have to make, yeah. So even though this is extended from the screen class, it still can't see this in that context because it's not public. I think I can also do protected. Yeah. So that's going to keep you from using it. Actually, we'll just make it public. It doesn't need to be protected. Okay. So now we need to make this actually centered, we need to do the width of the screen divided by 2, which will be the dead center, but since the sprite batches draw the anchor point of textures is the bottom left corner, so we have to subtract the top left corner, excuse me. We also have to subtract the width divided by 2 of the texture. So we'll do screen size dot width divided by 2 minus that. And that should give us actually the center. I know you can't tell much of a difference, but this is actually centered now as opposed to before it was actually offset a bit. Okay, now the next thing we want to do, you notice it's not flush with the top, it's moved down a little bit, so I'm just going to make this, let's make this 100 and see if that looks right. Oh, that's a little far. Let's do 60. And that looks about right. So if we can compare that, it's pretty close. Okay. Now the next thing that I want to do is do the bricks at the bottom. Now what we could do is have a separate texture for every brick at the bottom and then have a ton of sprite batch draws. But you can see that wouldn't be very clean, and I'm eventually going to need some way of showing tiles, so now is a better time than any to actually create a tile manager. And then this is going to be one, notice my content manager is a singleton, but I'm going to make my tile manager not a singleton because I want the menu screen to have its own tile manager and the actual game screen to have its own tile manager. So we're going to come here and create a new item and call it tile manager. And go ahead and add the dependencies. We're going to need graphics. Okay. Oh, and we're also going to need array list, so add the system.collections. So we're going to let's create our constructor first. Going to add a array list, and it's going to be tiles. I usually put im in front of my class specific variables. You don't have to do this. This is just the way, this is the naming convention that I use myself. But you could just call this tiles if you wanted to. So in the constructor here, we're going to initiate the array list. Okay, so the first thing we need is we need a method, and it's going to be public, to add tiles to the list. Eventually we will have a file pulling in, it will pull all the tiles in from a file, but for now we're just going to put the tiles in ourselves using a loop, because it'll be a bit overkill at the moment to have it to write a way for it to pull the tiles in from a file. So we'll have add tile, texture 2D, and then we'll just call it the texture tile. And all this is really going to do is just going to add the tile to this array list. So now this will let us put all the tiles in there, and then it will, and then that will hand this over to our draw method, and it's going to be if you notice, it's the same as our other ones. We'll give it a sprite batch. Now what we want to do is, for every texture 2D in our tiles array list, we want to draw that. That's not how you do that. What am I doing wrong? I'm thinking a different language here. I'm sorry. My brain's a little bit dead today. That's not the for loop we want. No. For each. Right. For each is how you do that. Sorry, I'm taking a C class and I was thinking C or Python. I don't even know. I'm completely brain dead today. Okay, so for each tile in your tiles array list, we want to draw it using the sprite batch. So draw tile. Actually, let's do this, because we need to set a position for all the tiles. So that's going to be not super easy to do the way we have it. So let's actually create another class. And we'll just call it tile. And I'm going to put it in here in the TileManager because we're not really going to need it anywhere else outside of this. So basically all that's going to have is a texture 2D and then a vector for the position. For now, it might have more later. So we also need a position here. And then we'll create a, let me create a constructor for this. Okay, so here we'll have it do new tile, and actually let's change this to the text for a texture. Okay, so these are not texture 2Ds in tiles, they are tiles. Okay, so for each tile, we're gonna do sprite batch dot draw tile dot, let's make these, I'm gonna make these public so I can see them, dot texture, and then the position will be, now let me take a look at something real quick. What we want to do is have all of our tiles be the same size, so that way we don't have to do math when we're positioning them. Basically, like the first 3 tiles, these 3 tiles will be in x0, x1, x2. Say they're 32 pixels wide. Without doing it that way, we would have to say this is x0, this is x32, this is x64, and it would be a lot harder to position all of our tiles. So I'm going to make sure that they are a normal size. Okay, mine are 42 by 42, which is a little odd, but it'll work. I'm going to go ahead and add this here while I'm there. Okay, so we're going to make all of our tiles 42 pixels by 42 pixels, and that will make everything a lot simpler. So for the position, we want to do, we'll do a new vector2 tile.position.x times 42 tile.position.y times 42, and then no tent. So basically we'll be able to set our positions as 0, 0, 0, 1, things like that, and it'll be pretty easy to do so. So now I'm going to add my texture, which is called tile brown 1, and I'm going to leave that as the name. So let's come back to our menu screen, and we need to create a TileManager class we need to instantiate a TileManager class that we just worked on. So let's go ahead and instantiate it. Now, and then the other thing we have to do is call the TileManager draw method and pass it the sprite batch. Okay, so let's start by just adding one tile. We need the texture 2D, so ContentManager.getInstance texture tile brown 1, and then we need a vector. So let's just put it at 0, 0 for now to test that. Now hopefully if I did this right, we will just have one tile at the top left. Whoops. This should be an underscore. Okay. So it looks like I didn't cut out the tile perfectly, but that's okay, because I'm not creating this game to sell, I'm creating this game to teach you. So this is not where this should be because it's at the top of the screen, and we want it to be at the bottom of the screen. So we will do, for the Y, we'll have it at, no, not MenuScreen, sorry, screen size dot height, and that's going to give us, I think the height of the, default is like 600. I think it's 800 by 600 by default. So what we need to do is that's going to actually put it way too low, because remember it's multiplying everything by 42. So we actually just need to divide everything by 42. And let's go and try this. I think it's not going to be visible. Okay, it's just barely off screen, but that's actually okay, because if we look here, you have one that's a little bit off screen. So that's actually what we want. So let's just do a little for loop, so that way we can add all of them pretty easily. And we'll do x equals 0, x is less than, and we want to do screen size dot width divided by 42, and that will give us, that'll just give us x will increment enough times to fill up the whole screen. So now we change this to X, and we have the whole bottom. Now we also want, if you look at this, we want a layer above that too. So we'll just call this twice. And we'll just do -1 there. So I'll put a layer above that as well. And there we go. Okay, so notice it's not going quite all the way to the end. It's stopping right there. So let's make this less than or equal to, so that it will catch one more. And then it will go all the way past the end. Okay, so there's the ground. Ours is going to be a little bit shorter, a little bit scrunched up compared to this picture, but that's okay. We can change the resolution later if we want to, but I think it'll be fine. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is let's create. I'm actually just going to treat these textures as tiles, which I know I said that we need everything to be 42 by 42 to fit, but that's just so that way you can repeat them. It really just affects the way it's positioned. So if I take this bush thing and I put it at position 3 for the Y, 3 from the bottom, and then 2, then it should put it here. I might need to mess with that a little bit, but let's see if we can get that to work. So I have that already. I think it's this one. Oh, that's the other one. Right here. So I'll put that in here, and then I go back to my Content Manager, and I add it here. It's called Scenery 2. Okay, and now we'll add the tile Scenery 2. Now I want to put it at about 2, and then we want it to be -2. Now let's see if that works. I have a feeling that's going to actually put it too high or way too low. Oh right, because it's positioning it by the top of the bush, and so because the anchor point is the top left, so I think I should be able to get it in about the right place, and then I'll just put the bottom of it behind the. Oh, that's too high. Let's try 3. I should be able to put the bottom of it right behind the. Okay, so it goes over a little bit, which is fine. All we have to do is take this and put that here, because in our tile manager our array lists are ordered, and they're ordered it stores everything in the order you put it in there, and the way we set this up, it's also going to draw everything in the same order you put it in there. So since we put I didn't mean to close that. Since we put we're adding the tile for the scenery before we're adding the tiles for the bricks, it will show up behind it, and that will work just fine. Now let's put the other scenery thing in there. Well, let me drag and drop that. There. We'll put the other one in there, add it to our Content Manager. And then we'll go back to our menu screen and just copy and paste this. Again, I'm going to have to move it around. And then we want to put this, let's try putting this at like 8. And then this is going to be too high, so let's try 2. Okay, it's at the right height, but it's too close, so let's make this 15. Oh, that's too far. Let's do 13. That looks about right. So let's look at our original image. My image quality is actually not as good as this one, but it's okay. You can. I'm not so great at the graphics, so that's something that you can work out on your own. Okay, now the next thing, let's put our little Mario guy. In a later video, we will animate him and have him run in from the side. I believe that's how that works. I've never actually played the NES version of Mario. But we'll have him run in from the side, and when you choose the game, he'll run off that way. And if that's not in the game, then that's okay, because it'll just be our little addition. But for now, let's just put a static sprite of Mario there. So we already have the Mario sprite, and since the last video, I edited that sprite a bit to get rid of the white background, so it actually has a transparent background, and I just did that using Photoshop, and I just selected all the pixels around him and deleted them. So pretty simple to do. And then I'm gonna actually just add him the same way. Try to, at least. I might have to do something a little bit different to fix, since he's not the same size as my tiles, but we will go ahead and just try it this way. I think he's called Mario, yeah, Mario 1. And then we want it to be at the same place, about the same place, a little bit over from the first big bush. Let's see what that looks like. See, he's a little bit off the ground here, so that tells me I can't just do, if I just move it down a tile, then he's gonna go way too far down. So I think what I'm gonna do is create in my tile, I'm gonna have a little offset. So I can't actually do an optional vector, I don't think. I think it's gonna get, it's not gonna like that. See, I think maybe I can do that. Yeah, I can. Okay, I'll explain this more in a second, how that works. Make sure it works first, actually. Oh, wrong side. It goes after. Okay, so I don't remember off the top of my head why you can't set vector2s as null, but it's the same type of thing. Like if you can't have a null integer, or so, but if you put this little question mark after it, then it allows you to set it to null. But then you can't actually use it. So like I can't do offset.x, but what I can do is offset.value.x. But if offset is null and you call offset.value, it will return an error. So you have to first check to see if it's null before you do that, before you actually use it. So when we're actually drawing it, we're going to say actually in here we'll make it so if the offset is null, I don't think, yeah, if offset is null, then we'll just set it to 0, 0, and then that will make this really easy. And then here in the position, we'll just add the offset, which will be 0 unless we set it to something different. So now in our menu screen, we're going to go to here and give it an offset, and we don't care about the X offset, and we want to move him down, like, let's try 5 pixels. Not quite. Let's try 15. probably going to be too far. It doesn't seem to be moving. Okay, so let's just test that for sure. Maybe we can't do... I've never actually tried that before with vectors. Oh, I bet this is why. If it's not null, then we want s offset to equal that, the value that you give. So let's try that. Okay, there we go. But he's way too far down. So let's try 5 again. And it's a little bit too far. Let's try 3. Okay. And let's move him one more over. And we'll move him, let's move him 15 back. And that's about right where I want him. So if we look at this, it looks pretty close. Okay, so I'm actually going to cover the text in the next video because I'm going to create an actual sprite class before I do that. And then same thing with this coin, we're going to animate this coin because I have, well, actually I don't have it yet, but I have a whole sprite sheet for this coin that has the different frames. So that'll look really good and it will look just like the menu screen looks in the actual game. Okay, so if you enjoyed this tutorial series, be sure to subscribe so that way you can be updated and know when I come out with the next tutorials. And good luck trying to figure this stuff out. And